Okay, welcome to Kids Baking Class Week 3. The first week we did quick breads that rise with baking powder or baking soda, not yeast or eggs. This last week we did yeast breads. We made some sandwich bread. Today we're going to do flatbreads, and in this case they're also going to be yeast breads, but they're ones that we're going to shape a little bit differently. So before we start, I wanted to show you guys a few different kinds of pans that we did not use last week, but that you could use. So this is a baguette pan. So if you wanted to make a loaf of like French bread and get the little holes in the bottom, or the little dots on the bottom, you would use a pan that has holes. That just allows the air to cook it a little bit better and that bottom crust to get crispy. Then this is the one I was going to use for the sandwich loaf, and it wouldn't have been quite as round as it was. This is called a Pullman loaf, and you actually bake it with the lid on, and that's what makes the bread like this perfectly square shape. So I don't use this one very often because I kind of like the round, but I just wanted you guys to see a different type of bread pan. Today for our flatbread, we're actually going to be making pizza dough, but we're going to be making garlic cheesy bread with the pizza dough, and you have a couple options for how you can bake it. So the options we have, this is a pizza pan. Again, it has all the little holes in it so that air can circulate and give us a nice crisp crust. You don't actually have to use a pan at all. I forgot to get this out, but this is called a bread peel, and it kind of looks like a big spanking spoon, but it's for sliding the pizzas onto a baking stone or like in a pizza oven that has a fire going. So we use this when we use our outdoor pizza oven, but today we're just going to bake in an oven. So I'm going to set the spanker down. Just kidding. No children are spanked with my bread peel, I promise. Okay. So today we're either going to use a deep dish pizza pan, which is just a cake pan, or you could use just a baking sheet, or I have the special round one with the holes in it. So we are going to make the dough, and do you girls remember what temperature our water should be?
Like a baby's bath.
Like a baby's bath, thank you, Brett. Okay, you don't want the water to be too cold or the yeast won't activate. You don't want the water to be too hot or it will do what to the yeast? Do you remember? It'll kill it, and you don't want to kill the yeast. Okay, if one of you could put in 1 cup of warm water for me, that would be lovely. Then we're going to add a tablespoon of yeast. And remember that you could just use a packet of yeast, that would be fine. This is pretty close to a packet. So, Aurora, do you want to do that one? A tablespoon of yeast, and we're just going to sprinkle that over the water, nicely measured, and just a little sprinkle so that it doesn't, you don't want it in big chunks, you want it to dissolve in the water, so she's just sprinkling it all over in there. Then we're going to put in 2 tablespoons of olive oil. So Maddie, you want to do that one? So there's the tablespoon, and you can pour right over the bowl, or you want, I'll pour it, you want to dump it in there. So 1, 2, we're not going to add any sugar to this dough, and you can just set that right in here, sweetie. But you could if you want a little bit sweeter pizza crust. I like mine nice and savory, so we're not going to do that. And then we're going to put in a teaspoon of salt, which I'm going to measure over the sink. Again, we don't want too much salt in our dough because you can't take it out once it's in there. So I'm just going to measure a teaspoon of it. And then we're going to put in 2.5 cups of bread flour. Remember last week we talked about bread flour being higher in protein than like an all-purpose flour. And what the protein does is it allows those gluten strands to form, and those strands are what traps in the air bubbles. And so when we have lots of nice gluten strands, we've got a really, really delicious dough. So we're going to put in 2.5 cups of bread flour. Do you guys remember to measure the flour, I'll do, if you girls each want to do one, we need 2 of the 1 cup, and we need 1 of the 1/2 cup. And remember that when we're measuring flour, you want to do it? Can you demonstrate? So you're going to scoop it in and then level it off. Nicely done. Okay, and then pour that on in there. Okay, and then hand it to Ava. Ava, you can do the next 1 cup. And then Maddie, you could do the 1/2 cup. So we're gonna put in 2½ cups of bread flour. And then this week I'm gonna mix it and knead it by hand just so that you guys can see what that looks like if you don't have a KitchenAid. If I am like making this for dinner and I'm in like a big hurry, I'm just gonna put it all in the mixer bowl, put on the dough hook, put it on the mixer, and just let the mixer run for like 5 minutes. But if you don't have a mixer, you can't do that. So we're gonna also show you how to do it by hand. So we've almost got all of our flour in there. And usually what I do is mix it for a little bit with a wooden spoon first. Try to get that out of the way. And then once we've mixed it, kind of moistened it with the wooden spoon, this is kind of a sticky dough. Then we're gonna knead it on the counter. And what I usually do is just throw a little bit of flour on the counter so that I don't have a huge mess everywhere. But you can see just from that little bit of stirring, it's already kind of together in a ball. But again, we want to develop those gluten strands, so that's why we need to knead it until it's kind of a smooth dough. Right now it's kind of a chunky dough. A chunky, yeah. You guys see the chunky dough? Okay, the chunky dough will not rise as good as a nice smooth dough. And so what I'm gonna do, and I'll let you girls take a turn, is we're gonna fold it in half and then use the heel of your hand, press with the heel of your hand. So you use your fingers to fold and then your heels to press. Not like these kind of heels, but heels on your hands, that would be disgusting. Okay, so fold and press, fold and press, fold and press. Okay. Get some of that extra. Go ahead. Fold and press. Nice. It gets a little bit harder the more you do it. Okay. And then see how it's getting long this way? Then you can turn it this way. Now Ava can fold and press that direction. Fold and press. You can keep folding and pressing. Yep. Keep pressing it. So you want to use the heel of your hand to smush it down there. Yep. Okay. You want to pass it down to Maddie? And the longer you do it, the harder it gets, kind of. So, there you go. And so you don't want a dough that's super, super hard because that's not going to rise very well. So see how it's a little bit sticking to the counter? That looks great. I'm just gonna knead it a few more times. And so you want it to still be a little bit tacky. Right now it's not because it's coated with flour, but it's starting to stick just a little bit. I don't want to add too much flour to it because I still want it to get a good rise. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to let it rise till double. We always let it rise until it's about double in volume. And for instant yeast, rapid rise yeast, that takes about 20 minutes on a warm day. So I don't know if you guys can see this, but it's starting to smooth out a little bit. And so we're going to put that in an oiled bowl and we're gonna let it rise for about 20 minutes, then we'll be back. Okay, so our pizza dough has been rising for about 20 minutes, and so now we're going to shape it. I accidentally put a little bit too much olive oil in here. Is that even a thing? So my hands are a little bit shiny, if you can see that. So I don't need to oil or flour the counter or anything, but it's nice and soft. Once it's been resting, it's going to be really easy to squish out. We don't even really need the rolling pin. Watch this, you guys. Oil's going to fling everywhere. Just kidding, I don't do it that way. I think you can. This could either make one thick crust pizza, 2 thin crust pizzas, or 4 little individual pizzas. So as you guys can see, I didn't even need my rolling pin. So look at that, it's already in a circle. I've got a nice thick crust around the outside there. I'm just gonna put it right on my pan. Plop. Spread it out so it kind of is in a circle-ish shape. So if I were making pizza, I could go ahead and put all the toppings and everything on it. I'm just gonna make some garlic cheesy bread. So I'm gonna put a little bit of olive oil. I still had some in the bowl there because I put way too much in my bowl. I'm gonna put a little bit more. Got some, okay. So, I know, it's going to be so delicious. So I'm going to spread it around, And then I got a little bit too much there on my hands.
Oily towel.
I'll get that in just a minute. There's something else in the oven that's ready. We're gonna put a little bit of garlic. A little bit of garlic. And then onion salt. This is super yummy. This has garlic and chives and all kinds of wonderful things.
Maybe if you open the other thing, it'll balance it out.
It's gonna be so good. And then we're gonna put some cheese on it. And so gonna make our bread nice and cheesy. So good. Yep. And then we're gonna bake this in the oven. And the higher the temperature, the crispier your crust is gonna be. So I think we're gonna do this at like 400. We're gonna check it after 15 minutes. You could go up to 450 if you like a really crisp crust. And about 15-ish minutes, just take it out when it's reached your desired doneness, whether you like it like a little bit darker, a little bit lighter. Yeah. Okay, so we ended up putting it in at 450 on convection bake and left it in for about 15 minutes. So you can see our crust is nice and crisp. It got nice and brown. If you do not like it to be brown, cook it at a lower temperature and for less time. So that's about it. Now we're going to cut it into strips and serve.